Hello everyone, welcome you all back to the subject of industry engineering and management. This video will be discussing about Unit 5. So the Unit 5, the syllabus is purely about the current trends of industry engineering. It includes many components and many topics. You could see agile manufacturing, lean six sigma, value engineering, total quality management, enterprise resource planning, supply chain and logistics management. You could see each of these topics can significantly be considered as a single unit. It can be studied as a single unit, but for want of time as well as the syllabus constraint, we will be looking into the overall concept of all these topics. In this video, we will be discussing about the topics which have been highlighted in red. Introduction to agile manufacturing, lean and six sigma, and third one is value engineering. Not long ago, we see that manufacturers had a greater control over the supply chain because they control the pace at which products were manufactured, and thus when they enter into supply chain, they were able to control how much of products, how much of materials are coming in, and how much of products will be able to produce. So now it is almost as industrial evolution has happened over the years. Everyone knew that we have been right now into this evolution of industry 4.0, and it's not so far that we'll be moving on to this next revolution of industry 5.0. So the manufacturing industry is on the verge of a paradigm shift. So it will take the predominant concept being mass production. It will be completely vanished, and they will be looking way beyond lean manufacturing into the world of agile manufacturing. So that was the reason why agile manufacturing is considered to be one of the most hottest trends in the industry sector. We have been following with mass production quite over the years in industry 2.0, and in then industry 3.0 we had a few of the mass productions as well. And industry 4.0 we were more focusing towards quality management, lean concepts and others of all those stuffs. And industry 5.0 it's completely moving on to, of course, industry 4.0 had few of the technologies incorporated, like you have cloud, IoT and other stuffs. Industry 5.0 will completely move on to a new paradigm of agile manufacturing. So what agile manufacturing is generally about? The ideal aim of an agile manufacturing system is that it reduces the material cost, maximizes the expenditure for the human resources, and it also minimizes the idle inventory. You see that whenever the idle inventory is minimized, which means that there is no stocking up of the goods for a longer time, you see that most of the goods will be completely going out in a more shorter span. So that will create more revenues, and when the revenue is more, obviously the profit margin will also be getting increased. When you go deep into the concept of agile manufacturing, we see that the roots of agile goes back to the area of scenes where Americans were finding it very hard to develop a few of the weapons and war related weapons during the World War II. So the roots of agile manufacturing goes back to the American defense industry. Why we need to have agile, or why we see that agile to be the next big thing? It is because you see that the global competition is intensifying. Gone are those days where you have the monopoly of your product. You don't have any other competitors, probably in the nationwide or in the international wide. You see that your product will be completely accepted by all. Now that you have very varied options and customers have different opinions about having the product, the competition is intensifying, and also your cooperation among the companies is become necessary. You cannot be completely being like you are the sole proprietor of that product. You are the one who will be manufacturing. You need to have collaboration with different industries to ensure that you are able to give a diversified product, and the quality also gets improved when the cooperation among the companies is becoming good. And nowadays the products we are getting, they have very short cycle life cycles, and you need to have production lead times or also be becoming a point to be discussed. So when the product life cycles are very short, obviously you need to have a quicker and easier adaptable environment where the industries can set up on the easier measures or easier process setup through, so that the product gets completed well in advance and it moves to the industry in very short time, uh, rather than being deploying so much of time in manufacturing the product. And once the product gets into the market, you see that the product is not being accepted, and the product is finding very hard, since or it may become obsolete in a very short span. Even now you could see that a mobile phone, probably 5 years back, a new model mobile phone, when it is released, you consider that to be one of the most trending one. But after 3 or 5 years, you see that to be outdated. So the product life cycle is very short. You need to bring the product in a much quicker time, so that the customers are if the product enjoys a good customer value for a longer time. And the customers are also expecting, the needs of the customers are also changing. The customers are also expecting a low volume products and high quality products, and they are also looking for more customized products as well. So what are the keys to agility? To determine the customer needs quickly and continuously respond and reposition them against the competitors, you need to be thinking well in advance, or you need to be very well proactive in getting the product into the market. And also you have to respond to the changes in volume. Sometimes you see that the products are required on a greater volume. The good example can be your COVID times, when I don't remember times when we were more obsessed with hand sanitizers and masks, right? So once this concept, once this COVID came in, crisis came in, we were rushing to the medical shops and pharmacies to get our sanitizers. So all of a sudden, obviously, the market was becoming so huge that they need to produce larger volumes of sanitizers in a very quick time, right? So that is what the crisis happens. That is how the crisis happens, and that is one of the key aspects of agility. You need to respond to the crisis in a much shorter time. You need not be waiting for the market to just settle up. Whenever the market is finding any changes, you need to immediately respond to that, so that you find that you are continuously sustaining in the market for a longer time. So how is agile different from lean? Lean and agile are somehow you have few of the concepts which are integrated. Obviously, agility is needed in less predictable environment when the volume is low, and when the volume is high, you find that to be very hard to adjust. But whereas agility, that comes from the top to bottom approach, like and it is required more of the agility nature is required from the enterprise level, whereas lean concept is more focused toward the shop floor and the factory level, and the incorporation of decision making usually happens over here, right? Whereas for agility, you need to have the clear cut mindset, and you need to have that kind of approach from the management. They have to understand that they need to respond to the market in a much quicker time, and they have to be very very precise and more specific about meeting the customer requirement whenever the demand is fluctuating. So few of the characteristics comparisons of lean and agile have been discussed here. A lot when you consider the logistics aspect of lean, it is more focused towards elimination of waste, whereas agility, it is more focused towards the customers and as well as the markets. When you consider partnership, lean calls for a long-term and stable partnership, whereas agility, as I said, since it is about when the product is about very short life cycle, and when the company is planning to bring the product in a much shorter time, then you cannot expect to have a long-term relationship. It has to have a fluid cluster. Then and there you have to form a few clusters, make sure that you both are get benefiting, right? It's kind of a win-win situation again. And when you consider about the process focus, it is more focused towards the work standardization and conformance to the standards, whereas it is more focused on the self-management to maximize the autonomy. And the output is measured as productivity and cost, whereas in agility, it is measured as capabilities and the customer satisfaction. Gone are those days when your product is good, and when the product quality is good enough, you see that the product will be reaching the market. But now, even if your product is good, you need to make sure that the customers are satisfied by the product. So the assessment of your product is only based upon how the customer is satisfied. There are few similarities, of course, between agile and lean as well, as both ultimately focused on increasing the sustainability of the business in high cost manufacturing sectors, and also both provide opportunities for smaller players to compete with larger and entrenched competitors. As I said, when you as indicated here, when you form these fluid clusters, right, these small players here refers to the smaller and medium enterprises. When they form clusters, they will be able to compete with the larger competitors, because they will feel that they can share up their work, and the process can be divided, and they are able to meet the requirements in a much shorter time. So now we'll see about what lean is about. We have been discussing about agile, and now we'll see what lean is about. Once we see lean, then we'll see about what Six Sigma concept is about. Then we'll move on to what Lean Six Sigma together is about. So lean has been with been prevailing and it has been followed in industries for quite a long time. So in general, lean is about elimination of waste. That is what a basic simpler term definition is about. So it is about continuous improvement with a focus on eliminating all forms of waste. So now the question arises, how do you define waste here? So waste in general, it includes any activity, any product, any material, any movement, any men, anything which doesn't add any value to the product, but it is adding only cost to the product. You call that to be as a waste. So lean focuses on eliminating all forms of waste in a process. So one of the famous quoting by Toyota Sakichi states that no process can never be declared perfect, which means that you cannot come to a conclusion stating that this process is ideal. There is no way of improvement over there. The situation will never ever happen in any industry. There is always a scope for improvement, and that scope for improvement should always be focused on moving the process to a next level. That is what Toyota Sakichi said that, and that was the reason why we see that Toyota production system is considered to be one of the most ideal lean system which has been prevailing in the globe. So lean, there are a few steps of carrying out a lean process. First thing is you need to identify what the customer value is about. Once you find that, then you need to map the value stream, then create a flow, establish a pull or a push. Probably pull system is the ideal thing for a lean system, and then you have to look for perfection, which means that you have to ensure that the implementation which has been done are carried over for good number of time. Maybe this slide or this image looks much of a complex, but however, this is how the complex is about the history of lean and how the different trends have influenced it over the period of time, how the concept of lean have evolved over a period of time. I'm not going to describe that about in detail, but probably a few of the key important aspects. It started off with F.W. Taylor, who started the concept of scientific management in the year 1880. So then Ford developed from that concept into quality aspects, where you could see statistical quality control concept was developed, then the Toyota production system, and then quality assurance. All these things happened in the next 20 or 30 years. So once that was done, they then moved on to the concept of having Six Sigma, where you could see Motorola was the pioneer of implementing Six Sigma, and they were the one who were able to get greater benefits out of it. So then from Six Sigma concept, they moved on to quality management system in another probably 30 or 40 years. And for the next 20 years, they were more focusing towards creation of Lean Six Sigma and lean management and business process management. You call them to be the BPR, BPM, and BPR. So of all these concepts put together, we could see so much of individual terms which have evolved over the years. We have Six Sigma, the concept of Lean Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, lean cultures, TPM, total productive maintenance, TQM, total quality management, and quality assurance. All these concepts have evolved over the time with the evolution of this lean principles. So now the comparison is about in a manufacturing perspective. When you consider workforce, craftsmen, we usually call them to be the highly skilled workers, right? They do not want any machines or equipment to perform their work. They are very skilled in a way that they perform their own work to the most perfect or most ideal way. So then it was evolved to the concept of mass production, where even if the worker is not skilled, you can have interchangeable parts, and even semi-skilled workers can be doing. Whereas when you come to lean, it is about not about individuals, it is about forming a team. Rather than having highly skilled and semi-skilled workers individually, lean concepts more focused towards multi-skilled teams, forming up teams and then doing a few work. So the tools here, obviously it was initially flexible tools, and then you had single purpose machines, and now the concept of flexible machines have come into play, and operations as well. As it is about synchronizing the four and creating a pull system. When compared to batch and mass production systems, when go back to the earlier days where a craft concept was followed, it is only about creation of single item. And outcome, you could see that it is low productivity, and of course it is high in quality, and the cost involved. That was a major reason why we have been shifting towards the next segment of principles. You could see that the cost is high. Of course, when you move on to mass production, you see that the quality was compromised. So now the lean concept, it is satisfying all the three needs: having a high productivity and a high quality product, and we are able to produce it at a much lesser price. That is what the lean concept gives to the industries. So there are three M's of lean. One is Muda, Mura, and Muri. Often these terms are used together in the Toyota production system. So what is Muda? It is about dealing about waste, and Muri is about overburdening, and Mura is about unevenness in the work. We'll see about these three things in the future slides. The Muda 7 waste. The first waste about defects, waste from a product or a service to meet the customer requirement. A defect is something which is not conforming to the given requirement. You call them to be a defect. So even if you are producing in excess, you call them to be overproduction, you consider that to be a waste. If your requirement is 100, if you are producing 300, then the remaining 200 is considered to be a waste. The third waste is about waiting time. Waste for a particular machine or a worker for being idle because the product or the material hasn't arrived. That is called as the waste of waiting time. Then the fourth waste is about extra processing. Of course, this unused talent waste is it has been created of late, and it has been incorporated, or probably it has been also included. So now the Muda's waste has been upgraded to 8 waste. So the initial 7 waste is about extra processing. Extra processing, even if the process requires only 3 or 4 steps, if you're processing it again for 3 more steps, then you consider that to be waste again. And any unwanted movement of materials and people within the workplace, within the factory, or within the plant, you consider that to be a waste again. And additional inventory or even lesser inventory which is stocked upon or which is piled upon is also considered to be a waste. Then the waste about transportation. The transportation about unwanted transportation from resources, or when moving products and materials. If you are moving full truck, you do not consider that to be a waste, because you are ideally utilizing the space. But if you are moving in a half truck, which is called as of course it's a semi truck, which means that you are not fully utilizing the capacity of the truck. So that waste is also considered to be as waste due to transportation. And of late, this waste has also been added up, which is called as unused talent. Underutilization of the skills of the people and the knowledge, you call them to be waste again, right? And Mura and Muri. What does Mura and Muri refers to? Mura means unevenness in the workplace, which is creating about non-uniformity and irregularity. For example, companies, they ramp up just the production to meet the target. When they see that the target date is nearing, they just, even if there is no consumer demand, they just ramp up the production to satisfy their bosses, stating that the target has been met. And Muri, on the other hand, it refers to overburden, which is stretching oneself beyond their power. Like excessive of impossible things cannot be forced on the worker or the machine. Even if a machine is able to work, if the machine is able to run for 15 hours, it needs to be maintained for 2 or 3 hours. Rather than postponing the maintenance activity for n number of times, it can create overburden on the machine too as well. So Muri can result from Mura. That is what this concept says. Sometimes because it is by the excessive removal of waste from the process. Muri can be also because of Mura, because you create unevenness and non-uniformity over that. So they are closely related to each other, of course. The next one is we'll see the 3 important categories of cycle time, lead time, and talk time. We'll continue this in the next video. Thank you.